last time and he was happy and he has entered some special character in the string and then he wrote it. So some of his seniors, what he trying to do, the SQL injection into the cloud. Because of that service went down. So, and when they log out, they find those characters. They say, hey, what you're trying to do.
Well, that was what happened with Facebook. It's like one engineer did a DNS read. And they said that they were supposed to have this thing that said that's quite a dangerous thing. You thought it was good, but it didn't work.
And he not be able to explain why he did that. Because if he say he's and because of that it happened.
Yeah, I was there for 2 weeks.
And no different story.
I guess so, but
you have to be in tow when you're working.
Yeah, this is
Very long.
I hope you've got the controls though.
I would like to.
You can't just do that in production. Maybe in there,
it is not a
you
production.
can do something.
Once we pass the welcome, which is 7,
But it is somewhere and stop the working.
right now I'm in the I'm going to get things running on
That is makes
I wondered what it was that Facebook was trying to do. Some system that was supposed to be like dangerous commands.
to see you in a bit. Have you had pizza?
It seems like a work in progress.
Pizza.
But yeah, it doesn't work.
I mean, that's the whole point of like having CI/CD and test environments, isn't it? That you get to see the dangerous commands.
I assume the investor network guys don't often have that.
Probably was different, but they had to sell them a bit better.
Yeah. We did have something they say, but in fact they told me we didn't have something. I'm Adam.
I'm Stefan.
Hi, Stefan.
Hello.
Where are you from?
Capital One. Old Street. Not many miles.
Three places. First thing I was doing.
Yeah, I walked it.
No, that's cool.
You're in Camden.
Which is not too bad.
Cool place to as well.
Yeah, it's honestly, don't mind the mugging, that's at the office. Like the homeless people everywhere. It's pretty cool though, yeah, live music.
No, it's cool. It's like you go, tourists go there. So tourists don't go to Old Street.
That's true. Old Street is actually the coolest place. If you're in technology, that is the coolest. Around an hour.
Yeah, we're on Silicon Valley.
Nice. Which building are you on?
White Collar Factory.
Mine, is that like
That's on the Moorgate, side.
Cool. That's cool. And short work.
Yes.
And no homeless people. Always there.
And they must be.
Drug addicts, but they're all wealthy.
Penthouse.
Yeah.
No, we'll be in this place. Like, just
So ASOS is on Azure then?
Yeah. We're hooked on it.
yeah, I know.
It does work.
No, I think it's a good. I think it's a good practice. Capital One made a real conscious decision.
Yeah. It's hard to.
Everyone, the entire company is filled up, and everyone gets.
It feels like that would be the best one. AWS. It's just like the options. Is that how it comes across? Like using it?
Well, Capital One have been on a journey to the cloud since 2014, so I'm not sure there was any other options. I mean, they existed, didn't they? None of them had to stay.
Yeah, that's interesting. AWS, Azure, when it started, was quite a different beast to what it is now. Now it's quite similar to AWS, and it's sort of like a suite of different cloud tools. But there's this. They've been moving off of the old, which was basically.
I'm pretty sure he's got it.
Like, it's kind of weird Windows machines that were in the cloud and you were writing code into sort of some kind of virtualization that was on a Windows machine somewhere. Now they're like a Windows guide, whatever, you know, they've been trying to get rid of it ever since. Really. And now they have, and now it's got all the things that people use in everything. and very function heavy, which is kind of cool actually.
I've only been at Chapter 1 for a while, but I get the impression that the cloud journey they started so early, some of the functionality just wasn't available.
That was exactly the truth.
No key management, no certificate.
No,
Really,
dramatic.
You do it all yourself, so it's, you know, got their own system.
Really, they've got the
Well, that's to build on top
Right.
to enable it in the first place, and they're
What's
stuck on
happened with it? They have been moving off, and they are now pretty much, I would say, like Azure, like it's supposed to be, which is kind of cool. So
I think AWS
some of it, not so much. But
Sorry?
AWS has a lot of clouds. It's a very mature cloud.
Yeah, but not in 2014. Like EC2 and
it's funny how
S3
they
at the
put
time.
stuff together at all, really, I think. Like, you know, someone kind of saw how things were going to be and just flung some stuff together. Yeah.
It might depend on the like code base, .NET, Windows kind of companies kind of a bit more hesitant to leave like the Microsoft kind of ecosystem.
And you'll be to push to serverless and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're certainly for the actual website where there's not a service anymore.
Really?
We're
That's good.
lots of
So what was it? Kubernetes and it's PaaS on Azure, is it?
as
Platform as a service. Sorry.
yeah, we've certainly got a lot of Kubernetes. Yeah, I would say it's probably.
So you're not accountable for the underlying service. That's
No.
what I mean. You need to patch it.
No.
You need to monitor
But
it.
interestingly, it's outside of the actual website. We have got some server stuff. There's still a lot of folks who do that as well. But yeah, the website, if you visit the website and make it not using a server. Yeah. And there's a lot of kind of
Is that the new ones?
which is just like Amazon.
Nice.
I think they're really cool. Stuff that doesn't even
It
exist.
totally is. Yeah, that's the structure of Chapter 1 is
What do you
land the
want?
functions first, then
Is it run okay?
far,
Yeah.
far side.
What are they saying?
There's a native containerized version. It's
Is that right?
far
Rented it.
because some of the other the Kubernetes engine and the container engine actually they sit on a virtual server that you also
Yeah, on the other side.
so, you know, help share some sort of-
Yeah, yes. Okay.
And what roles?
So we're pretty keen on functions. I think a lot of the sort of tasks that we have, we're kind of beginning on it. A lot of the stuff it's kind of amazing. That's what's been and maybe every minute.
We'd love to. No. I mean, actually, I'll tell you. I tell her where we have lots of technical debt.
Yeah, it's good.
The crazy prioritization. We aspire.
I am Ramiro from amazing. Likewise.
Funny enough,
Yeah, I am.
a bit of headspace, so we're starting to do some.
Yeah. I feel like
They didn't want to do it. Just make them go away.
And have you got like a
normal sit at the front and like shuffle it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very tight.
My guess.
Yeah, that's I'm here.
Were they October, November, like brand new things?
You want to put them on the stick?
Well, you have
The
standard
ones that
testing
are manufactured around there.
applications.
Is that
It could take them a
I'm going to 1 second.
uh,
Right. And of course, penny testing at the end, which explains everyone. Wireless.
Yeah.
But the last one was
I can't really see your lips.
yeah, I mean, I guess one day
Your camera's
efficiently
you can't see.
It's just
not to do it away in time. Enough incremental stuff. Presentation stuff.
Pretty much wherever you need to. No. I'm all messed up.
Yeah.
No, this. I mean, originally when I joined, I was later on we were.
Please come on in if you're still settling in. There's a whole row of seats down the front here, so lots of space. Please come on in. We'll kick off in about 1 minute.
At the moment,
Honestly, like if you're standing at the back, there are seats.
Insurance roll. Because I start hitting. It's a bit disturbing.
Yeah. That's one of the. I'm not working on that part.
This morning.
That's true. Devil. MLW.
All right. Let's go. Okay, welcome to Cloud Native London.
You don't want to move to London.
Who are we? We are a strong, open, diverse developer community around cloud native technologies and platforms in London. I'm Cheryl. You can find me at Twitter on Cheryl. I'm your host for this evening. Tonight we have 3 speakers. So our first speaker, Viktor, is going to tell us about supercharging your Kubernetes Ingress. Then we're going to go to Dimitris, who's going to tell us about new observability with OpenTelemetry and distributed traces. Then we will take a 15-minute break for more pizza, beer, whatever. And then we'll have our third speaker, Jaap, who's going to tell us about wrapping up chaos engineering implementations, Demystified. At 9 o'clock, we will head to one of the pubs. If you want to stay around a bit longer. All right, I want to say thank you to tonight's sponsors. So first up, eSynergy, whose office we are in. Someone from eSynergy want to say a word? Suddenly everybody is shy. I know there's some eSynergy folks in here. Okay, well, thank you. eSynergy. The next couple of sponsors can make it, so I'm going to read out a couple of words from them. First of all, Circle CI. The world's best software teams use Circle CI to deliver quality code with confidence. As the largest CI/CD platform, Circle CI empowers engineers to seamlessly take ideas to execution at scale. Every feature of our platform is built to fine-tune the entire development process from start to finish. We have Palo Alto Networks. Palo Alto Networks enables your team to prevent successful cyber attacks with an automated approach that delivers consistent security across cloud, network, and mobile. And we have Sysdig, who are driving the standard for cloud and container security. With Sysdig, you can prioritize software vulnerabilities, detect and respond to threats, and manage cloud configurations, permissions, and compliance. Your teams get a single view of risk from source to run with no blind spots, no noise, and no black boxes. Then we have Lightstep. So you want to say a word?
I'm Dimitris Finas. Happy to meet you all here. And I hope that you'll be interested in OpenTelemetry.
Super sweet. And Untitled.
Hi everyone, my name is Ramiro. I'm the founder of Octeto. Super happy to be here, engaging with the cloud native community in London at Octeto. We're building a platform to enable teams to deploy ephemeral cloud dev environments that look like production. So if you are building cloud native applications, if they're getting too big, if they're hard for your team to build, let's talk. We brought some stickers and some handouts in that page if you're interested. And looking forward to chatting with everybody after the talks.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And again, I want to thank all the sponsors for providing pizza, beer, making this all happen. A little promo. KubeHuddle is a conference that is happening October 3rd and 4th in Edinburgh. I have 2 free tickets to give away. If you want to come along, please find me and give me your email address. You can also use CNLDN code for 20% off. Okay, now I want to find out a little bit about you. So please grab your phone and go to this link, cheryl.com/p. And we're going to do a bit of live polling. I'm going to ask a couple of questions about you and a couple of questions from our speakers about how you use cloud native. I'm going to ask our speakers to just comment on what they expected. So this is cheryl.com/p. You'll get something that looks like this. You can skip if you don't want to give your name. There's also a longer link if you missed this one. Okay, ready? All right. Oh, I see people have already started answering. Okay, is this your first time at Cloud Native London? You get a yes and no, and you just pick whichever one you want. All right, looking like the yeses are just outnumbering the no's. All the no's are creeping up. Oh, are the no's going to take over? Nope, the yeses are pulling ahead. It's really nice to see first timers. I know a couple of people here who have, this is the first time in 3 years that they've been back as well. So whether you're first time or whether this is your third, 3 years ago coming back, it's pretty amazing to see a good crowd, good turnout. Oh, we hit 50-50. Someone going to cast the deciding vote? Okay. Oh, the yeses are finished. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right, what is your job title? Just pick whatever's closest. Your options are architect, application developer, backend developer, engineering manager, SRE/DevOps engineer, security engineer, or anything else.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Good number of people going for other. So anyone want to say what they are if they chose other? Or shout out what they are? Student, nice. I like it.
Blockchain engineer. Blockchain engineer.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. Very cool. Welcome. Anyone else? What are we at now? Oh, SRE, DevOps engineers, definitely in the lead for everything else. Sweet. All right. All right, let's keep going. Okay, first speaker question. Are you currently using a Kubernetes Ingress controller? The options are yes, I'm using Nginx. Yes, I'm using Kong Ingress controller. Yes, I'm using another Ingress controller, or no, I'm not using an Ingress controller at all. So this was submitted by our first speaker, Viktor. So Viktor, are you here? Yeah. Do you want to unmute yourself and just say, is this what you were thinking? Is this what you're expecting?
I'm wondering what people are using with how they expose their services without Ingress controller. The 46. I'm quite expected that many people will use Nginx. Hopefully, numbers of people who will be using Kong Ingress controller after the session will be higher.
Anyone who said no, I'm not using an Ingress controller, and they're using something else not listed here, wants to say what they're using?
Not me personally, but I know sometimes in teams where they're using service meshes, for example, they don't understand that they're actually abstracting to an Ingress type service envoy at the front. They'll just go, I have service mesh, and it just goes in. And also, to be honest, API gateways, API management, it's not that mature across a lot of industries. there's a lot of quite bad behavior with people just essentially sticking an ALB in front of the microservice and thinking that's enough in terms of what they have to expose to the outside world.
Okay, fair enough. So, so if you missed that was basically some teams are using service meshes and not using an ingress controller or not understanding what the value is. So hopefully, as part of Viktor, as part of your talk, you also be able to persuade people they might need one.
Yeah, I will provide the options, but I'm not here to persuade anyone. So I see many opinionated people in industry. So, you know, I will just show the options and you will decide if you want to go this or not.
Sounds good to me. Okay, what are the 3 pillars of observability? See, sex and sun. That sounds more fun. Logs, metrics, and traces, API, SDK, and logs, metrics, and AI. Right, yeah, this is your question. So, what are the results that we're getting? A third of people think C, sex, and sun is the 3 pillars of observability.
That would be nice.
Right. Logs, metrics, and traces. Are we correct?
I think so.
Yes, I think so too.
So we've got 63% serious people here.
Yes, well, exactly. Now we know. All right. Perfect. This is your question. Sorry, I got this mixed up. All right. So when did Netflix start using chaos engineering? 1998, 2003, 2008, 2013, 2018, or never? This is an interesting one because it actually has an answer that people should know. So I can tell there was a moment pause there. Everyone's thinking about it. Looks like 2008, 2013. Maybe people are changing their mind a little bit. So let's give a few more seconds for people to decide. Seems like we are kind of evenly split between 2008 and 2013. So, want to tell us the answer?
It's 2000.
That's true.
It's 2008. After they had a massive database failure because they used to scale vertically, and I think it was one of the racks died or the database died, and then afterwards they decided that they needed to fail continuously to be able to catch those things in the future. So I think they officially released it like the first iteration in 2009, but they started with it in 2008.
Awesome. All right. Okay. So I think we've learned something a little bit new. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking part in the polling as well. Okay, I need a selfie for social media. So everyone kind of, okay, if people are sitting there, can you like move this way? Because I won't be able to get you in the shot otherwise. Just for a minute. Fine. Yes, exactly. Right. Like a couple of seats here which are annoyingly empty because just sit on these seats for a moment, just like for the benefit of social media. Okay, and then like big wave. Perfect. Thank you very much. See if this still works. Yeah. Good. Okay. Right. So when we go to questions, we'll use the same polling service. But for now, I'm going to stop my screen share and hand it over to Viktor. So Viktor, whenever you're ready.
All right.
Looking good.
I think we're good. If you see the screen, that projector is working, and you can hear me, hopefully as well. Can we do raise your hands if we see in here? And I was trying to figure out how we can have a live interaction here. So actually, I'm very excited. I'm very excited that to be here. even though they're virtually and my screen share is still working. Hopefully next time when I will be in London, I'll see everyone in person. So today I'm going to be talking about Ingress. Not super exciting topic for many of you because many of you voted that you're not using Ingress at all. Hopefully, after this the session, you will be looking into Ingress slightly different. A very important question. Very important question. Cheryl, how much time do I have for my presentation and demonstration?
You have 30 minutes total.
Perfect, perfect. 30 minutes, that's more than enough that I need. And I have my timer that so it will not run out. Let's go. Yes, so Ingress essentially is a technology that allows you to expose the services that you run in Kubernetes. And I think it's appropriate topic to have during the cloud native meetup because you will be building services and deploy them in Kubernetes. And the services needs to be accessed by your, I don't know, users, your partners, consumers, whoever. Essentially, that's one of the basic pieces of functionality that were available in Kubernetes for a very long time. And it's basically mimic idea of putting load balancer in front of the application. So I'm going to start talking about how we can supercharge your Ingress and putting some additional pieces of functionality on top of the regular things like exposing your service to outside world and putting HTTPS certificates so you can serve do SSL termination on the side of the Ingress. I work as a principal developer advocate here at Kong. I get to travel, but not today. Get to travel and talk to people around the world about technologies, cloud native technologies. I was writing about the things, doing the videos about the things. Previously, I was involved in more in the data space. So wrote the Apache Kafka in action book. If you're in this type of jazz, or you have questions about Apache Kafka, I'm also your person. And now I'm doing all sorts of things about API and cloud connectivity with Kong. Now, so brief agenda, quick refresher about Kubernetes networking and what we're going to be talking about. We start looking into Kubernetes Ingress and what things available for you in this, and what actually lies in future. So what you should expect, what kind of innovation you should expect in future in the world of Kubernetes Ingress. If you are curious and curious enough, you probably already see the hashtag that I have down below here, and I will mention about Gateway API a little bit in the future. Also, my Twitter handle is conveniently placed on every slide. So if you have an urge to tweet about this, please do. I will be happy to answer any questions. If you have this, I have a DM in Twitter is open. All right. Native applications, Kubernetes native applications. So Kubernetes serves us as a platform for deploying our applications. We put the applications and we even like describing our applications, and Kubernetes will make things happen for us. We never tell Kubernetes what to do. We're just saying what we want from it. And we want to have one application that will have 3 replicas, and Kubernetes will go and figure out where to serve this application. If we want to provide external access to this application, we need to provide a special type of service that will provide external IP address. And with this external IP address, this load balancer will route all the traffic. So if we want to have access to this order service that we deployed, we can expose this service that will be having orders. And after that, Kubernetes will do the thing. Once we start building more and more application, we're putting more and more applications inside the Kubernetes cluster, we start getting the situation that should we have load balancer per each application instance? And it probably would be wasteful because IP addresses, external IP addresses and globally available IP addresses are limited. When I said the globally available, I mean in the internet, and I assume that you're running the applications that needs to access to some of the stuff that needs to be accessed from internet, but also you need to run some applications that needs to be accessed inside your organization. So, but still, you need to have some sort of addressable IP address for this load balancer. and historical load balancer services. The cloud providers might charge you differently. So maybe it's a unnecessary part of infrastructure that you need to put in front of service. If you have 10 services, do you need to put like 10 load balancers? So Kubernetes community come up with this idea. Okay, what if we can have one proxy, one router that traffic will go in, and after that, this router will be right and leads all this traffic to particular services. This is where we're coming into the world of Kubernetes Ingress. Essentially, Kubernetes Ingress, it is a Kubernetes API that allows you to configure access to your services. And this is how we're doing this. You're specifying what kind of path and where this path leads to. So in this case, for the builds service, we will have access to build service through /builds path. The way how it works, we take this ingress object, supply this to Kubernetes, and Kubernetes will do this magic and provide the routing capabilities. And this is going to be part that we're going to be focusing on. The thing that here. So we will placing Conk here, and we will be placing different pieces of functionality that are available in Conk, and we will be implementing this in Kubernetes right now. So as a matter of fact, this is the reason why I brought this up. It is actually all the things are available on open internet. So maybe it's not super wise to put the things on open internet, but hey, I like to live dangerously. So if I go to something like HTTP, by the way, how is my font? Is it beautiful enough, big enough for you folks to check? Like thumbs up, thumbs down. I can see this. Okay, thumbs up. Mostly thumbs up. If I will hit conk proxy me, meaning that my cluster is available on global internet, so I can do the thing. So I'm going to start with a simple example right now. This simple example will involve few applications. One application is I like movies. I like talk about movies. I like watching movies. I like to learn everything about movies. So all my demos that I build, I somehow like to bring movies there. And I build this few services that essentially a random quote generator for different movies. We're gonna see today Back to Future quotes. We're gonna see some of the famous facts about Chuck Norris. I don't know if you're familiar. It's kind of like a big deal here in the US, like a Texas Ranger and all American, the Commando Chuck Norris is quite popular there. I don't know if it's popular in UK. Dune, do we have any fans of Dune book and movies? And I consider Dune as the best sci-fi book ever written, like whole series, not only first book. For some reason, many people just don't read more than that. And I don't see any thumbs up. How many of you consider Dune as the greatest sci-fi? Anyone? No. What's the greatest sci-fi book in your book?
Blade Runner. Star Wars.
Come on.
Asimov.
Without Dune, we will not have a Star Wars, guys. No. We can have this on go. Anyway, we can talk about this later. I also have some other stuff with Rick and Morty. I think it's another example of the greatest sci-fi of modern generation. I can fight about this. Standard things, standard deployment. I use this container that I wrote. This is published container on the Docker Hub. Standard service, nothing really fancy. I'm just exposing this service and with port 8080. And I do have an ingress. So this ingress, very much standard, except few annotation that I will walk you through right now. So with the specification of ingress, you can define a so-called ingress class. And this is where implementation details are leaking into the abstraction. This is basically becomes a leaky abstraction. So when you specifying some of the actual stuff in your standard thing, this is where things become very interesting for many people. Now, the another things that Kubernetes provides the way how we can modify some of the behavior of the standard components. So you see here right now, this is the standard ingress. But if I put some additional annotations, only my ingress controller, only a component that runs inside the Kubernetes will be able to react on those annotations. And this is the standard way, not only for Conk to deal with something with annotation, but also with tools like external DNS. I love external DNS because it allows me to integrate with my DNS provider, and whatever I'm configuring in my ingresses or some other services, it will create the meaningful domain name. So basically, if you will take this URL back to future .concproxy.me and put in your favorite let's see this one favorite HTTP tool, you will get the API response. So let's see if it's actually that looks like a quote from Back to Future. So with my headers that I know that when I hit this particular URL, I will be actually routed to this pod that run my application. That's very simple. The bare bone examples. We're gonna play around. We're gonna play around with this example. For example, I do have. If I'm going into the world of Chuck Norris, we're gonna be using two services today. In a world of apply, I also will deploy Chuck Norris service. And Chuck Norris service will be available also through URL. If you go, I don't need this yet. Not found yet, because let's see what we have deployed right now. So Chuck Norris service up and running. Let's see if we have any ingresses here. Chuck Norris search proxy.me. So if I will go to chuck.proxy.me, sorry, conk proxy. We're getting into what we're doing. Conk proxy me. That's always interesting thing when you do stuff with demo and with DNS. So it looks like DNS might not be ready because I'm doing this like on the fly right now. Yeah, DNS name is not available. However, in my ingress, I was able to specify the where is it ingress? I specified a host, so meaning that if I will hit the ingress inside the IP address of my conk proxy, I will be able to route into this host by providing host header. So if I will do this host header, put the Chuck Norris, and my base URL is going to be conk proxy me. That's how I'm exposing my Kubernetes cluster. I should be able to get route to Chuck Norris. And in my looks like if it mentioned Chuck Norris, works. Works with Chuck Norris. And the way how it works, again, I provided header, my ingress read this header and route it to particular service. As soon as my DNS will be updated, this address will be routable through just standard chuck.conk-proxy.me. That's the bare bones. That's something that everyone knows how to do this, and everyone know how to do it with pretty much like any tool. It's a basic functionality that's available to pretty much any ingress controller. You can get the Nginx, and it will do the same thing. Now, so the next thing that I want to do is to try to like supercharge as I promised. So when you're exposing the service in the to open internet, you also don't want to create this kind of like a Wild West situation when everyone start hitting your URLs and you start getting a build by your cloud providers for requests that come into your cluster. So this is where I'm gonna be showing how I can leverage some of the pieces of functionality that are available in Kong. So Kong, first of all, it is a open source technology that built on top of two quite popular projects. One is the Nginx, and there is OpenResty project that built also on top of Nginx, and it provides a Lua runtime that basically enables some of the cool functionality can be added in a runtime without sacrificing performance and without doing the configuration without restarts and whatnot. So Kong is open source, it's Apache v2 license, and today we're going to be using a component that we also developed specifically for Kubernetes. It's called Kong Ingress Controller. Essentially, it will be translating Kubernetes APIs and turn into the Kong configurations. And the way how it does, just simply by listening all ingresses that would be assigned for this particular ingress class and reading some of the annotations and then making some cool stuff based on annotation. So I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna start with a few plugins that we're gonna be enabled. So first one is gonna be our free tier. I call it free tier because I want to provide access to my APIs for free to everyone, but I want to limit on how people are going to be using this. And so if I go ahead and just do rinse apply into service Kubernetes, and I'll just do plugins 01 free tier. So it will create a we're using CRD to configure Kubernetes, and it will create a Kong plugin object. In order to assign this plugin, I need to create this annotation called Kong plugin, and I will just need to mention this plugin that I'm going to use for this. So in this case, name of the plugin was a rate free tier. So in my ingress, so if I'll go and say rinse apply, so my ingress configured. So now next time when I hit my Chuck Norris server, so first of all, what I will see as a response, I will see a few more response headers. So since I enabled this rate limiting plugin, so I can do stuff like repeat on intervals, say every 3 seconds, I want to send request. And every time when the request will go there, it will check IP address of my caller. And based on the IP address, we can limit number of requests. Every time a response will return how many requests are left. And after next call, we will start getting the too many requests API rate limit exceeded. So since in my configuration of this plugin, I configured only 5 requests per minute, and would be limited by IP address. That's good enough in some cases if you want to limit exposure of your service. And again, like my application didn't have to be changed. Nothing will be changed. It's just simply simple annotation that I need to put on my ingress. So next thing is that we will try to make things a little bit complex. We want to have some of the user will have ability to get more than others. In this case, we're providing them with the API key. And the way how we can do this with Kong is we define another plugin. We have this plugin called the key authentication that will be reading particular header and extracting the API key from the header. Based on that, we will be able to configure this plugin. So I have this plugin called Paid Tier. Let's assume someone just paid me, and we can send them API key. And now they will have a 10 requests per minute. And now they're limited by consumer. So consumer is a special concept inside Kong that allows to sort of represent a caller of this API. So with the configuring consumer, we can provide different characteristics, and other plugins can work together with this consumer. So let's see if we will be able to do this. So I'm going ahead and just saying Kubernetes, apply this plugin. And inside my ingress, I already have something configured here. Just let me uncomment this. And let's do this one. We need the platinum tier as well later. So that's I'm configuring two plugins here. One is for rate limiting, another for key. Because if I will just have only one plugin, there would be no way for me to distinguish one consumer with particular key versus another one. So inside my application, when I hit this now, okay, so Chuck Norris is misbehaving because we still don't have cannot resolve the host. That's fine. We're gonna be using this. We're gonna be using here over here. So I will just add a. Now we start getting the unauthorized exception because our server, we're still hitting the server, but we did not providing key. So if I'll go to with API key as a header and my key here, now I'm starting getting this request, and now I already have a 10 requests as a limitation. So if I will start doing this, send repeat on interval, just do it every 2 seconds. And one of the things you also might notice that Quant also behave as a standard a load balancer, because I'm running 2 instances of the service. If I'll go to the to deployment, inside my deployment, you can see that I'm running 2 services, and now it's configured by round robin, but Quant also supports different policies, allows you to configure how these services would be accessed. So again, application, it really doesn't care about this. Application will just continue to work without any problem. Now that's the simple plot. Now we also want to expose the same same piece of functionality to different customer that has a higher level of access to the feature. So that's why I have a platinum tier, has a 100 requests per minute, and I want to have a special consumer that only will be used for this. So in this case, I'm distinguishing the another consumer, and I'm distinguishing this by another key. So I will go ahead and configure this in my ingress. My ingress is over here, so I will be disabling this guy. And I will enable to use authentication rate. Where's the platinum tier? Let me apply this. So we'll platinum tier deployed, and we will be able to enable this ingress. So what will change? Still have too many requests, but if I will hit this with platinum with a platinum tier. Going into wrong URL. Let's see if we will be able to check at wrong.c.me. Still can resolve the host. DNS is not fun thing to play around. So let's do this duplicate, and just do flat. And with the host, and I also would put different API key. So the magic word for getting platinum tier would be a run house kick, right? And this is how you can get 1,000 requests as a limit. So same URL, same application instance. However, we have a different level of access to this application through this. Now, I know that many people not doing many stuff with REST these days, so that's why I'm gonna quickly show you things that we have around a gRPC service, for example. And this is where we go into the world of Dune, and we'll do okay. So I have a quotes from the Dune exposed as a gRPC service, and my gRPC service here will be available through this service. Let me show you my gRPC definition. Can we have a quick show of hands? How many of you actually using gRPC these days in London? gRPC versus, okay, so I have a 2, 3, 4, 5. Not many people. Why are you not doing this? I'm wondering. And also I need to create some of the secrets. Okay, gRPC. Secrets, just generate the secret. It already exists. Perfect. So for gRPC, native ingress or like whatever Nginx ingress, maybe not providing you with access with gRPC, or you need to go into something that allow you configure gRPC. So with this, with Quonk, this stuff is pretty much stays the same, except a few annotations that we need to put. So when the request will go into this particular Dune proxy gRPC thing, it will be treated as a gRPC traffic. So it's not HTTP, HTTP 2.0. And the service that we need to configure. So our proxy, our Quonk proxy needs to talk to the service also through gRPC protocol. So I also annotating my service with gRPC. And if you want to see a gRPC proto file, it looks something like this. Two methods. One method is just give me a quote. Another method is give me 10 quotes, and it's going to be streaming. So let's see if we will be able to do this. So when I hit this URL from, by the way, I'm using this tool called Insomnia, which is allows me to have all sorts of things with the HTTP, REST, gRPC, GraphQL, and all these type of things. I can do this with Insomnia. Let's see what we have here. So this we're getting the response from this ingress, and this response from the Dune. Here's the thing: who controls the spice controls the universe. Spice must flow, and all this type of jazz. Now, and also I can do stuff with streaming response. So the server provided me a response in like 10 responses. It's just the length of my stream. It can be longer, so you can use the gRPC to get the streaming data. And these things were configured through Quonk, and Quonk handles multiple things here. So the one of the annotations that I use here as well, I use integration with Kubernetes ACME protocol, which is called Automatic Certificate Management Extension, that allows to Quonk and integrates with Cert Manager and provision certificates through Let's Encrypt. So I'm using Let's Encrypt to generate those certificates for this domain. And my Dune proxy is now available through gRPCS, so which is secured, and it's all cool things. That's a quick stop on the demo. One kind of like one last thing. So we talk about this gateway stuff. We talk about this ingress stuff, and now we go in or Kubernetes community going into new routes. So what, instead of having one dedicated kind of ingress and you try every vendor of the ingress controller need to come up with these ideas how they can integrate this and providing hashposh of annotations and all sorts of ways how to extend this, what we will have a different model for configuring this. So that's why Kubernetes community come up with this idea of a gateway API. We define a gateway class that essentially administrator of Kubernetes cluster will be responsible for configuring. And you as a developer, you don't have any business of configuring this type of stuff. Only thing that you will be able to configure is your star route, HTTP route, gRPC route, TCP route, and whatnot, and your service. And underlying implementation, you don't need to worry about this. You just specify what kind of gateway you will be using. So it's a separation of concerns in terms of how this traffic can be configured. Some of the basic functionality that you will get from some extra plugins or some extra software, like canary deployments or doing like a weight based routing. So you can say 50% of the traffic will go to service version 1 and the 50% goes to the service version 2. You will be able to do this very easily with this standard specification. So right now, this thing is not, most likely if you check your Kubernetes cluster, you will not find all these CRDs that come in with Gateway API. And the reason for that, because right now the specification, I guess, just passed beta recently. But many vendors start supporting this already, implementing this. And I did the whole video talking about the Gateway API. So if you're interested in this type of jazz, please check the YouTube channel. That's what we do these days. We're doing Zoom meetings and YouTubes. So check some of the videos that I did around this Gateway API and some other things. And I have a video where I'm explaining how you can even expose TCP and UDP services from your Kubernetes cluster. This is where we can get actually Rick and Morty quotes. So with this, please check the websites, check my YouTube channel. And my name is Viktor Gamov. And as always, have a nice day. I don't know if you want to answer, if you have any questions right now, or like I said, feel free to DM me with your question in Twitter, and I will be happy to answer those. But best thing is to join me every Wednesday on the Conk YouTube channel where I do live stream and get your questions answered that way.
Cool. Thank you very, very much, Victor. We've got about 1 minute to do questions. So you can use that same link that I gave you before, cheryl.com/p, to submit questions. And this is like Reddit, so you can thumbs up and thumbs down as well. So just one question so far. Is the rate limiting per service or across the entire ingress?
Granularity can be configured. You can have it as a global config. There's a configuration for Conk plugin or Conk cluster plugin. But you can have granularity per service, you can have granularity per path, per consumer. I showed you that you can have a different rate limiting logic based on the client. One client provided one key and another client provided another key. What's the difference? What differentiates? Yeah, okay. So what differentiates Conk to other alternatives like Gravity and Apogee? So that's a good question. And the answer to this one, it's basically everyone can answer this for themselves. There's a different cars, different marks of cars, and different people prefer different marks of cars. Some of them because of color, some of this because of features, some of them because of speed. There's the cars like, I don't know, Toyota Corolla. It's a nice car, can get you places. And there's a car like a Porsche, very nice car, also can get you places, but it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. I am not a fan of having this kind of like a checkbox comparison type of stuff. I'm more like, okay, what's your problem you're trying to solve? And I will explain you how we can solve this problem using Conk. Kind of, you can decide for yourself, is it something that you want to pursue as a solution or not? There's a great comparison that's available through learnk8s.io website. It's kind of like an independent research team, and they have this Excel spreadsheet that they were basically surveying all this cloud native landscape, and they put these checkboxes everywhere across different functions. If I will find this right now, I will try to put this in chat in Zoom, or I will forward this to Cheryl and she will forward to everyone else. What's
You
the
have 1
future
minute to
of
ask. 1 minute to answer. What is the future of Ingress? And then we'll
future
move
of
on.
Ingress is the gateway API. This is where everything is going. Gateway Ingress as a specification probably will not go anywhere, but we really truly believe that people will start using the gateway API to expose their services, because gateway API will provide them with more capabilities and more flexible and more granular control over your services. Is multi-cluster routing handled by Conk? We have a different solution for multi-cluster routing called Kuma Mesh. So we can route the traffic through the service mesh using Kuma, and Kuma works together with Conk.
All right, we're going to end it there. Thank you so much, Victor. Another round of applause, please. All right, I'd like to welcome our second speaker. So, over to you.
Thank you. Ready for the next topic. We're going to speak about OpenTelemetry, so quite different subject and quite different positioning in the CICD. I'm from Lightstep. For your information, Lightstep is a Californian company. We co-created OpenTelemetry with Google, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I can speak about it. We're also one of the major contributors, and we are part of the board. So I'm going to speak about an introduction. So I'm going to tell you what is OpenTelemetry, what is the purpose, why was it invented. I'm going to zoom into distributed tracing because that is the most, I would say, new data that is managed by OpenTelemetry. And by the way, that is the source, one of the big sources of OpenTelemetry. And I'm going to tell you why it is time to change. And when I'm speaking about changing, I'm speaking about changing the habit for monitoring, the habit for root cause analysis, and the habit for application performance management. And I'm going to illustrate some of the new capabilities that are provided by OpenTelemetry with Lightstep, but you can also find some of them with other tools. So OpenTelemetry, who in the room here is knowing OpenTelemetry? Can you raise your hand if you are already using it? Or okay, probably 5–10% of the room. That's more or less what we find in every country in Europe. It's a little more in US. You should know that OpenTelemetry is an open source project. It is in the CNCF community. That's why we're here. It is the second project in CNCF. And its purpose is to manage in a vendor agnostic way all traces, metrics, logs. So all telemetry data that you use in your monitoring today, the purpose of OpenTelemetry is to manage them in a very efficient way and in an open source standard way so that you can use this data after that with any monitoring tool. A little history. So OpenTelemetry is based on two projects, OpenTracing that was founded by Lightstep and OpenCensus that was founded by Google. OpenTracing focus was on distributed tracing because in Lightstep, we are convinced that distributed traces is the most efficient way to do root cause for microservices, far more efficient than logs, far more efficient than metrics. And we joined together with Google. Google made OpenCensus. OpenCensus was working with, was dealing with distributed traces and metrics. And so with the foundation of OpenTelemetry, our first focus was to do distributed traces in a very standard way that everybody could use, and then do the metrics. And currently, we are also implementing the log in OpenTelemetry. As you can see, the project is quite new because, for example, it was released in beta in 2020. The first validated version, V1, was in 2021. So it's just last year, but it is already used in Google GCP. All traces, metrics that you can see in GCP are based on OpenTelemetry. It is used in AWS. If you use CloudWatch or AWS X-Ray, they are based on OpenTelemetry. and it's becoming to be used in Azure. And if you go to the OpenTelemetry registry, I will provide you the link to it. You will see the list of technologies and vendors that are supporting OpenTelemetry. That's enormous. That's the biggest project just beyond Kubernetes. Why is that? Because everybody is interested in it. Everybody sees a value in it. If you're a vendor, it's a very good way to provide a set of capabilities and a set of connectors nearly free of charge because they are developed by all the communities, meaning they are also developed by the other vendors. And the fact that it is vendor agnostic make it very appealing and interesting for customers because they are fed up installing new agents every time they buy a new solution. So if you can install a single agent to capture all the telemetry data and send it to any tool, you're really, I would say, the king in the game, and that's the purpose of it. And by the way, I've got another presentation, which is more a second level presentation. When I give you samples and examples on how telemetry is used in production, it is used heavily in many major companies, like Zalando, for example, but also Spotify, GitHub. Many people already use it in production with very high volumetry. So it is really performant and production ready. So the source of OpenTelemetry was distributed trace. What is a distributed trace? In fact, a trace is a single transaction among all the different layers of the microservices. The purpose is to have, I would say, a single stack trace of your transaction, whether it goes to one service or to 10 services, and whether it uses a single technology or multiple technologies. Meaning, if here I've got a mobile client or an Nginx client, I still have the trace. If I have a load balancer that is based on an API gateway, the trace will get the context and it will be attached to the same transaction. So I can really see my transaction end to end. And for sure, for this, we use a trace is a set of operations. We call this operation spans. So each line in a trace, we call it a span. And the purpose is to see the transaction end to end. Like you can see it already in APM tools, except here it is in a standard way, meaning it will work with any APM tool. Good for now? So this is a trace in Lightstep. So very similar to what you have seen before. And you can see on the right one important part of OpenTelemetry, which is the context. The context is a set of attributes. Attribute is key value, where you can define technical attributes or business functional attributes. By default, all the technical attributes like the HTTP method, like the service version, like the protocol or whatever, are captured automatically by your OpenTelemetry agent, especially if you do auto-instrumentation. And you can add your own business attributes. And you can see here another value of OpenTelemetry. Because you can add business attributes, you can do business reporting, you can do business alerting, you can do SLA, SLO, and business SLOs based on OpenTelemetry. In Lightstep, we use a lot these attributes in order to do correlation for incidents and find for you the root cause of a possible incident. By the way, you can see also on the bottom that you've got log events attached to your trace and to your span. That is another added value of OpenTelemetry. You see that OpenTelemetry is matching traces, logs, and metrics. The purpose is to correlate all these events so that if you got a metric that goes bad, and that is the signal of a problem, you will get automatically the trace and the logs attached to these metrics. But the very good practice, in fact, is not to put logs in files anymore. It's to put logs in log events directly in your trace, at least for all application logs. Why is it a good practice? Simply because you reduce the volume of logs, files that you have to manage, and it's very costly and very inefficient. And you get the direct correlation between your transaction and your logs. So you can see a distributed trace as a way to organize your logs in a very efficient and very correlated way also. So I'm here to speak about the way that people are changing and they are changing their practice. As you probably noticed, I'm not fully English native speaking. In fact, I'm French, I'm based in Paris. I've got a colleague here based in San Francisco, lucky one. So I'm the little froggies to give you advice today. So why is it time for change? First, it is time to become vendor agnostic when you capture your trace, your metrics, and your logs. Meaning that it's time to use an OpenTelemetry agent in your application, in your infrastructure. Use a collector as a proxy in the middle to collect all the data from the different agents that you have in your infrastructure and application. And from the collector, you can select which vendor, which telemetry backend you will use to analyze your data. So here I put an example with Lightstep, with Prometheus. It could be Jaeger, it could be Zipkin, it could be Dynatrace, Datadog. The best solution is the solution that can integrate easily and natively with OpenTelemetry. And believe me, all of the vendors will become integrated to it. You already have Honeycomb, New Relic, Lightstep as the first ones, I would say. But if you talk to Datadog and others, I would say, yes, we support it, we support it. And in a few years, they will work really with it, I would say. Then it's time to change also because the list of integrated technologies to OpenTelemetry, I think, is one of the biggest lists in the market, and it becomes bigger and bigger every day. You can manage real-time transactions. For sure, it was made for that. But you can also manage asynchronous transaction with Kafka, with queue system. You can see your transaction from the website, from the mobile to the database, all in one tool and all over all these technologies. If you want to have an updated list of technologies, go to this site below here, OpenTelemetry registry, and you can search for any technology and get the project working on it. Again, little history, but this time it's not history of OpenTelemetry. It's the history of monitoring vendors in parallel to the history of Kubernetes and containers. And what you can see here is that most of the monitoring vendors, they were created before Docker even exists. Meaning that all of these vendors, they were not knowing at all that we were doing containers in few years, that we were doing Kubernetes in few years when they invented their solution. And that explains two things. First, they are not really scalable. And second, their focus is on infrastructure and metrics. If you look at new vendors, guys like Lightstep or others, I'm not here to speak about the others. So if you look at new vendors, we are a cloud-native company based on cloud-native technology. The scalability that we have is far bigger than what was done with the previous solution. And that's also the scalability of OpenTelemetry, in fact. And also, we're really here in order to do things in a vendor agnostic way and in a very, I would say, performant way. Let's see what it means. So what does it mean? First, it means that there is a change on the metrics that you use. Previous companies and previous monitoring were based on the use metrics, meaning they measure usage, saturation of your, what does it mean, use? It means usage, saturation, and error. It means that you measure the saturation of your CPU, the saturation of your memory, the saturation of your disk. So it's infrastructure monitoring. But most of the companies are more interested in knowing the customer experience. How my application is behaving in front of my customer. And the customer is not aware of your CPU or memory. The customer is aware of the latency and the errors. So that's the purpose of the red metrics. The red metrics were invented by Google when they set the SL guide. They set the fact that we should measure the throughput of our application in regards to the error rate and to the latency we're creating. And that's the red matrix. So with distributed tracing, you measure natively all the red metrics of your application. Then second shift, and that's a bigger one, in fact, because when I met a lot of people, they speak about monitoring, they speak about finding root cause, and they speak about logs. But that's not efficient. How much time you spend looking at the logs, even with an efficient tool in order to collect all the logs and search them together, it takes minutes and minutes and minutes to find the root cause of a problem, and you need an expert to find it faster. With a distributed trace, you've got an organized way to find your transaction. You've got an organized way to correlate the context and to find the root cause. And instead of speaking a long time about it, I will demonstrate it to you later. So now let's speak about what kind of new capabilities we can have with OpenTelemetry data. So I will use the demonstration in order to show you this, but I will speak about the purpose of all these workflows. The purpose of all the new workflows regarding OpenTelemetry is to find a trace. Why is that? You can see example here of a trace with an error and of a trace with latency. What can you see is that when you've got an error, the root cause is quite easy to find. You just have to follow the red line and go to the bottom one. Why? Because that is the one that is putting the error to the above layers. Meaning here, I've got my iOS client, I've got an API gateway, I've got a call to an authentication service, then I've got a call to another service. And I can see that everything that is not red, it means it goes well. And when you've got an error, it goes from the bottom, from the backend. So you follow the red line and you get automatically the service that is in error. Try to do the same in the logs with 210 services and try to find exactly which exception is the good one, and the one that is generating the error on the top one. You cannot do it as fast as here. And the same for latency. In case of latency, you just have to follow the longest black line. As soon as you find the longest black line, you find the source of your latency. So the purpose really is to go as fast as possible to the good trace. Because the problem with distributed trace is, like with log, you've got a lot of volumes. You've got thousands of traces. And when you've got a simple tool, you have to do yourself the work to filter this trace and to find the good one. And that's where correlation and context is useful, because that's what will give you the tools in order to analyze this. Okay. So time to go for a little demo. So yeah. Perfect. I am on Lightstep, and what I show you is a map of all my services. By the way, this map is not something that I configure or that you need to configure. It's calculated based on the trace. If you remember well the trace, it is a set of operations, and you know which, for each operation, you know who is the father, who is the span that is above you and that is calling you. So based on this father, we are able to understand which service is called by which one, which is called by which one, etc., etc. And we are able to draw for you this map of services in real time. And that's already useful because it means that if you've got a newcomer and he wants to understand his architecture, it's really easy to show the architecture. And as this map is a live map, you can see that there are red circles here. A red circle is an error. So I can already see that in real time, I've got errors on my Android, I've got errors on my iOS, and these errors are coming from my gateway and probably from my profile and store server because there is no error below that. And if I want to go to the error, I simply select the red line and go to the trace. So that's already a good way, very efficient, very fast, to in real time analyze error. If somebody is calling you, oh, I've got a problem with iOS, can you please look at it quickly? You can as quickly as that go to the trace and see where is the error. But that's not the most efficient way because you're not sure that's the best error. So what you can do is you can also select all the operation. Sorry, you can select here iOS. You can do queries based on all the attributes that are in the trace. I told you this is useful for dashboards. This is also useful for root cause analysis. I can query by any attribute, by my, for example, by my customer, and by any value. If I run this query, for sure filter the trace, but it will also filter the diagram in order to show me only the operations that are going through iOS and only the errors. And here, it also gives me another information. As soon as I do a filter based on an operation or based on a service in Lightstep, it shows you the latency. That's the APM part of OpenTelemetry, I would say. And here, for example, I can see that most of my latency is spent on my SQL layer because the yellow circle is the biggest one. I will go to another workflow just to illustrate the correlation between metrics, traces, and logs. So this is a dashboard that you can have in any tool, like for example in Grafana or any other tool. And here you can see that all my containers, they've got a peak at one point of time. At the same time, by the way, in memory and CPU, and also in my network consumption, all at the same time. So in a normal workflow, you will look at the time of this error and you will begin to search in log what is happening at this time. With new workflow, you can just ask the tool to analyze the deviation for you. And what Lightstep will do is that it will look at all the traces in this period and all the traces in the period before. And it will begin to compare all the performance, all the context information in order to understand what is happening, what has changed. Because the source of the change will probably be the root cause. The first information it will give me is a list of operations that are creating this deviation. So among all my previous architectures that I show you, there is only 4 operations that is creating this deviation. They are all ranked by order of magnitude, meaning that if I open the first one, I will have 2 more information. First, the impact based on red metrics, and second, the root cause. So red metrics here, it gives me the impact in terms of latency. You can see that my response time was multiplied by nearly 4, from 160 milliseconds to 600 milliseconds. In terms of throughput, I can see that I've got 2 times more queries at the same time, but I've got no error rate, meaning I've got no exception. Meaning that my issue here is a latency issue, and it is an issue that would be very difficult to investigate in logs because I've got no exception. So I will use the context in order to give me some information about what is causing this. And by comparing the context and all the attributes in the trace, we're able to see that there is one customer here that is generating 41% of my deviation. It was only 5% of my transactions before. And there is one platform, iOS, that is generating 53% of my deviation. Meaning that the root cause of my latency issue is probably for this customer and this platform only. And that's where it's interesting, the fact that we correlate both and that we filter the traces based on these arguments. Meaning that here, you've got the diagram of the deviation, and each point here is a transaction that has been captured. Except that these transactions are filtered based on customer pro rule and based on the iOS platform because we identify that it is a probable root cause. So if you select any trace now, you just have to follow the black line in order to understand where do you spend your latency. And here's the black lines. The biggest black lines are on these 2 operations that you see here. For sure, I haven't lost my logs because if I look here, I have the log of the DB statement that is launched just below this database update transaction. And if you've got clever developers, they probably put somewhere, yes, they put here the payload that is used for my API calls, meaning I've got all the items I need in order to try to reproduce the issue. And you can see the context information that was used is here, the customer, etc. So that's the purpose of modern tools, I would say. Give you a root cause far faster than what it was when you use logs, and far simpler. And this is used by SRE. This is used mostly also by developers, because when they want to understand what is happening in prod, they can use this kind of this tool very easily. Compared to, and they've got no impact in production because you're only read-only in terms of production. So just to finish, so you will get the slides, so you will get all these kind of workflows. There are a few more examples of workflows that you can use with red metrics and with distributed trace. I would say that in terms of next step, you can look at OpenTelemetry. We will give you the, for sure the source where you can find more information. I really recommend you to go for distributed traces. If not, you're not using it for the moment. And if you go for distributed trace, use OpenTelemetry. There is doing another project at this point of time would be completely stupid because CNCF is going this way. Meaning it's like doing, I would say, another thing than Docker today or Kubernetes. And if you use distributed trace, you need probably to change your observability backend because most of the backend don't have the scalability or the way to handle all the data that we can generate with OpenTelemetry. Testify from one customer how to manage 5,000 microservices in production with SLO based on distributed trace. That's this one. And the second one here is an e-learning, step-by-step, how to use OpenTelemetry. You will learn how to use auto-instrumentation, manual instrumentation, then deploy an OpenTelemetry collector and send to Jaeger and Lightstep. So all this in 2 hours, I would say. And the next event that we are doing is here. It is a web conference about cloud-native observability with one of my colleagues from the US. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. We've got a couple of minutes to do questions. So, same deal as before. You can use your phone to submit them. First question, how do I use OpenTelemetry to trace AWS serverless apps?
That's a very interesting one. In fact, that's more easy than what you think because AWS is using already OpenTelemetry. So when you're doing AWS, you enable X-ray. And instead of pushing the traces to X-ray, you use a collector inside AWS in order to push it to Lightstep or to Jaeger or to any tool you want. So you simply follow the step to enable X-ray. And at one point in X-ray instructions, they give you steps on, you want to deploy a collector? You say, yes, sure. You deploy this collector. In the collector, just to show you an example of collector configuration. The collector configuration is in YAML. Oh, I don't share my screen anymore. So collector configuration is in YAML, and you've got 3 lines of YAML to push, to export your data to another backend.
All right, next one. It sounds nice, but what is the performance of the system? E.g., how much resources is necessary for lab application generating a dozen gigabytes daily?
Okay, so OpenTelemetry is the fastest and more performant agent that I have ever seen in the market. Really, with Zalando, we use it with millions of events spans per second with no problem. They generate more than 100 megabytes per second of data that we ingest in Lightstep. And the only use case where I see the performance is impacting is for serverless. So for serverless, sometimes you don't use auto instrumentation, but you do manual instrumentation, meaning you do yourself in your code the trace because of the performance impact. But I have only seen it in GCP functions that runs in microseconds. If you're running in milliseconds or seconds, perfect. I see one easy. What backend would you recommend? It's Lightstep, very fast one. What tools can be used for trace storage and searching? So you can use Lightstep also, for sure, that's the best. No, you can use also Jaeger and Zipkin if you want to start using tools, different tools, and if you want to be on premise. Lightstep, you've got a free developer license also to test it. So if you want to start with OpenTelemetry, you can use it. Oh.
You can go back to the top.
I will reply to the other one further after, or do I have time still?
You got, let's say 2 minutes. Try and get through as many as you can.
Does it mean goodbye for watch logs? In fact, we recommend our customers, at least for application logs, to put all of them in traces. It's far more efficient and less costly. So any file for application logs, yes, you can probably remove them, not at the start of your project, but after 1 year, you will probably remove them because you will use less. But you still have to keep infrastructure logs and security logs for the moment for audit. How can SaaS providers integrate hotel for customers without giving away service internal? Okay, we are working with some SaaS provider. And in fact, how do they integrate hotel for customers is that they just have to deploy the agent on their side, on their infrastructure, and they provide a collector, and in this collector, they send it to the backend of the customer, the backend the customer wants. So they use the standard OpenTelemetry architecture in order to be vendor agnostic and provide any backend to their customers.
Try and go to the top.
Yes. Where does Prometheus and Grafana fit there or no need? Yes, Prometheus is very particular use case. As you can see, you can have it on the right as a backend in order to store your data and search your data, like Lightstep. But Prometheus, you can also have it on the left side as a source of data, meaning that you can use OpenTelemetry to get all the metrics that you already store in Prometheus and send them to any other backend. So that's a very fast way to migrate from Prometheus to another tool, for example. And Grafana is on top of Prometheus. So yes, you can still use it with OpenTelemetry. OpenTelemetry is compatible with Prometheus. Is every request being traced or is there sampling? You can use sampling. With Lightstep, it's very particular. We are so performant that we accept no sampling, meaning we can accept 100% of your transaction if you want. But you can for sure use sampling if you think that you don't need to have everything. How do you avoid losing resolution for trace? So it depends on the backend, this one. If you're using Lightstep, you don't have to use sampling, but for the backend, for sure, you will have to use sampling and lose a little resolution. The shirt, we can have it if you go to another Lightstep event. How can they go about using it? This one is a bit longer to answer. I cannot answer.
It's, yeah. I guess anyone can follow up if they have other
just after.
Just follow up. We're actually going to go to a break right now. Another round of applause, please. Before we go to the break, just a reminder, if you want to come and speak here, I think the next speaking starts in May, so just plan ahead. You can also go to cloudnativehub.com if you want to sponsor or share your own event. Now we're going to go to a 15-minute break. Please come back at 8:30. 10 minutes break.
I mean, I would say, for us, we provide this.
There's like hundreds of something thousand. Yeah, I think that was. And I checked to look for what.
Are you guys doing? We've heard about Cheryl. Only today.
I mean, I was.
Have a different experience.
Yeah.
We will be in Spain.
He's the person who started the process with us. Something very serious.
So you guys still use Rally? Good decision. I started. We only had one service.
Which language?
Back when people called Rally. We started out with I'm sure it kind of wore on over time. Once they got hold of it,
Yeah, so much because now that Python has it's like very easy. I guess. I don't know. You're not great, but somehow there's no other choice.
You're ready for the future, even for now. Yeah. And how do you use it? What backend do you use? Honeycomb. Nice one. Yes. They are good. They speak well about it because many competitors are saying good things about it because they are runtime and so they try to minimize it. Honeycomb, they get it. They're one of the few that really speak very well about it. And I know that the two founders of Honeycomb, the founder of Lightstep, in fact, they know each other. They were at the specifications. They really respect each other. I love that. And we've got quite different strategies because they manage everything as events and you correlate events. And we still distinguish between price and volume, even if we correlate it to and that's probably how we manage the real log file. Because at one point of time, customer asking us, yeah, I want to ingest my log file. That's not a very good thing, but we need it for security, etc. And we will manage it this way.
Oh,
it's better than being on our own.
Developers trying to figure out what services are and you're creating branch. So we do use aggregate all your engagement dependencies as so testing. I love this, and that's all reported.
Very marketing.
Okay. Because I have to do it fast. Okay.
So it's possible, but how much
in general,
resources
if I'm not on serverless, the impact of OpenTelemetry is 1% of your transaction. 1% in time of your transaction time.
If you have, let's say, 5-6 services related between one another, database, proxy, server, so on, so on, so on. And if you want to analyze these logs, so how much resources do you need? So this is the question.
Nothing. In fact, we will have an agent in each, an OpenTelemetry agent in each container. So that's part of the application that runs on top of the application, in fact, and that is the one that is taking 1% of the performance of the resources of your application. You can put a collector on above that collects all the data from your different containers. The collector itself is a container of 2 CPU, 2 GB of RAM, and then you have a backend which could be an existing Prometheus database or a new backend in SaaS mode like Lightstep where you push everything.
Do you mean what you provide with analysis, trace analysis in real time?
Yes.
Oh, that's quite interesting.
A few seconds, just a few seconds after your transaction.
No, at the time being, AWS instances they use about 80% of their CPU capacity. Yeah, our application. So and sometimes big latency connects to the instance using SSH.
Is it functions or containerized application?
It's containerized application. But it is not.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I don't know why. I don't need to.
And was this Spark?
Okay. It's we are using system D component.
Okay.
So practically there is no so you do not.
What is the performance of the response time of a request currently? Is it in microseconds, in milliseconds, in seconds?
I guess it's milliseconds.
It doesn't come across well.
So a few tens, few thousands.
It depends. So the application itself, it's it's better to compare with Google search. So, but it's for corporate level.
Yes, very important.
And also we use
lots of
some kind of crawlers, spiders to search and indexing the data on the ground.
And put them in memory instead of accessing disk or backup or database.
Because we use the rate. And also we use indexes stored in the database. And also it's a very huge amount of data. So this is performance is quite important. And also, sometimes we have a problem with there is a, let's say, latency for customers, and we try to analyze it. So yes, you're right. We have to dig into logs. At the time being, we are using Datadog. But the problem is it's quite expensive. So we have to pay for indexing files. So we do not log everything to Datadog. We do not index everything. We have a lot of live logs, but we do not index everything. So if you do not index, you can't search later. So you can't analyze. So from this point of view, it sounds very attractive, I would say. But I just want to understand what is behind it. So how many resources we need.
Okay, so when I say that it's the fastest agent that I ever seen, it's true. It's not marketing. I compare it to others. And in fact, there are 2 points that are important in OpenTelemetry. It is very performant, meaning that in a few milliseconds or less, it will send the traces to us. Okay. And so it is working asynchronously to your transaction. Using a batch, when you send something to the OpenTelemetry collector, it is independent from your process. It will not block your process because it is asynchronous. And it will send everything in batch mode. Meaning, in order to optimize performance, you will not send each trace each time you collect it. You will send a bunch of traces every few seconds or every few, as soon as you reach 10 traces, for example, or 100 traces, so that you don't connect always. Because at the end, real time or 1 second later, it's not very important in terms of
you mentioned about agent on every instance. Okay, we trust you. It's all information.
No, only its own information. And directly, it's instrumenting the application. So it doesn't scan logs, it doesn't scan everything. In your code, what is your language?
Most of it is on C++, also use Python and Node.js.
Okay, Node.js and Python are its auto-instrumentation, meaning you put the Java agent and it will collect automatically the operations that are called in Java and send them to the SAS path. C++, you have to do this, meaning you have to manually import an OpenTelemetry library in your code. Okay, here I create a span, here I add attributes, here I close my span. Sometimes customers have created a wrapper, meaning they don't ask developers to do all the job. They go to an OpenTelemetry wrapper on top of your code. The developers import the wrapper and the wrapper does the job for them. But in Java, you don't have to do this. The instrumentation is doing it for you.
And this agent, where it send information, it sends our own shell, so basically
that depends on you. You should define a collector, that's one container, you know, that's 1 gigabyte container, that's the proxy. All the information you send it to the collector. Why is that? Because you don't want your developer to know like which backend you use. With OpenTelemetry, the purpose that you can switch backend. You can have several backends, you can switch backend with 3 lines of YAML. And then all developers they just care about sending to this container. And this container, this container doesn't store anything. This container is sending back the information to your backend. You can send it to Kubernetes, you can send it to Jaeger, to CPU, or to Lightstep, or to Onecomb, or to New Relic. anyone you want here.
But when you mentioned
On the developer side, before you push.
your agent application,
Not quite,
I guess
not quite. OpenTelemetry.
but our security view really.
You already have data package. You already have data packages, correct?
No, because the data.
They're part of the log file. You know, it's a Lightstep. It's the open source. That's not Lightstep. It's the open source. They will know only the containers that is in the premise. They will know only the data.
I would say more. We have no data loss at all. Because we are using our own
And we support at least you're sending logs to data.
No, because we are using
Working now. You can do this with the collector. You can send a player on premise to Jaeger and Gordon.
No, one is first they were giving the top and from nothing I went like 7 but because I'm now a blockchain
What do they do?
blockchain here, both. So first I'm a Docker, so I care about the docs.
Yeah, I will show you. I have a repo describing step by step. I can send it
away and I work some other docs. All right. What do they do? They largely
how do you make type of problem? I mean, in this day and age, we have enough time to present them because dogs need attention.
Yes, those are I wouldn't expect that.
They're very territorial, they need attention, unlike cats.
You can be
And when you have very limited time, they start being aggressive.
How you get those files?
Yes, people and love their dogs.
By the way, you can also send them. So you were asking that configuration of the that's your I receive the file, I transform my data with the processor and export it with an exporter. What is nice is you can export Lightstep and export it to define an endpoint. And that's the first thing is very performant, but it's also very performant. Anybody just changing 2 lines of code. So if you're not happy with security, I was telling the processor, it's open source, it's not certified. Last year, we got a do. As an example, the key component that is available as container, but also is fully open source.
Are you ready to welcome our first speaker of the evening? Right. Okay, round of applause, please.
Thank you. Thank you for sticking it out. I also understand that I'm standing in between everyone here and the beer, so I'll try not to go over. So my name is Jaap. I also work for a California-based company, so that's the third one in a row tonight. We need to. I think we need to do better here in Europe, and also get some cool startups. So I'm a developer advocate. I work for Harness, and yeah, I've joined Harness about 6 months ago, so I'm relatively fresh. So for tonight, we'll be talking about chaos engineering, just to get a feeling for how advanced and how common it is. Are you currently actively using chaos engineering? Can I see a show of hands? Yeah, for the people watching online, there were 2 or 3 hands, so that's going to be a no, which is good, because then yeah, we can get into it. So why chaos engineering? And why is it important? There's a couple of examples I have here. This was Salesforce a while ago. I'm not sure if there's anyone here from Salesforce. We have other examples too, so it happens to a lot of companies. So Salesforce went down for a while. It was obviously DNS, and it took quite a while before this one was resolved. So you can see that it started on the 16th, and it was the end of May before it was fully back to normal performance. So this is something that you don't want with your production environment. Another one, also a big one, Cloudflare, and this is also one that I've been guilty of in the past. So this one came down to an empty array as input to the command, and it's empty strings were good input for this config file. So it's overrode everything that was there because there was it came back with an empty output. So simple fix, but pretty big consequences. And the last one, Atlassian, the wrong ID was given, and it took 14 days as well. So pretty big impact, and also examples of chaos engineering, unintentional chaos engineering, because I think there's 2 kinds of chaos engineering. Everyone is applying chaos engineering. The difference is, are you doing it yourself? Are you running chaos experiments, or you just embrace the chaos and pick up the pieces afterwards? So I'm hopefully going to convince at least some of you to don't embrace the chaos and run experiments, use the scientific method to find out what will break in your environment, because it's better to do it in a controlled fashion than to reactively try to fix it afterwards. So a bit about the costs for, this one's a little bit blurry, but the cost per hour for downtime can be quite significant. It depends, of course, what kind of the size of the company, the size of the customer base. But an example, if you're an e-commerce site, and a big load of traffic will bring down your entire website, that is of course going to be very costly, because the reason you have a lot of traffic is because you have a lot of potential customers. So that is something to prevent and something to test for beforehand. And the other part is also there's things like reputational damage, brand integrity, and the like. So to summarize, what we want to prevent is this very happy dumpster fire. Because I mean, I kind of like this dumpster fire, but we don't want it in our production environment, and especially not the production environment that you are responsible for. I've had too many 24-hour plus working days trying to pick up the pieces afterwards. So I'm kind of done with that part. So there's a lot of common failures. I'm not going to read up everything on the screen here, but our failure is, of course, a very common one. Nowadays, now that we're mostly not running our own infrastructure anymore, that's less of a problem for us, but it's still something that you can test for, in the sense of what happens if an entire availability zone dies, like what Chaos Gorilla for Netflix was doing. And let's get into what chaos engineering is and what it isn't. So A simple example of chaos engineering is just getting all your processes and just randomly killing processes. It is chaos engineering because you're definitely introducing chaos into your system. But if you're not monitoring it, if you don't have the telemetry, if you are not running it in a controlled fashion, you are introducing chaos to your system, but it's not what we're after. So it's about subjecting applications to real-world situations and to see how resilient they are in those circumstances. So, and we do that by injecting faults into the system, and those faults we introduce through chaos experiments. A little bit of a history of chaos engineering. I already alluded to it earlier tonight when with the opening question, when Netflix got started with chaos engineering. So there was after their big failure in August 2008. That was before we had Netflix over in Holland. I'm not sure if Netflix was here already, but so I was not aware of that beforehand. But in 2010, they implemented Chaos Monkey, and they've built out their suite of services since. And since 2020, AWS made it part of their well-architected framework. And Litmus Chaos is one of the products. It's also a CNCF product. CNCF software by Chaos Native, and they've been acquired by Harness earlier this year. It will stay open source and will stay part of CNCF. So let's talk a bit about Litmus Chaos and what we can use it for, what some of the components are, and how we can apply it to run chaos experiments. So it's an open source cloud native framework. There are multiple frameworks. Earlier on the slide of Dimitris, we also saw that it was one of the more popular CNCF open source projects. I think we have close to 150 contributors to it, and it's going in the sense of adoption. So there's a lot of components to Litmus Chaos. A couple that I want to highlight is a Chaos Hub. Chaos Hub is used for either creating, sharing, or getting access to chaos experiments. We'll go over a couple of them later. We have Chaos Center. Chaos Center is from where you can schedule your workflows, your experiments. And we have a Chaos Agent that will actually run those experiments. So let's get into the functionality. And let's talk about Chaos Center. So we have a number of possibilities here. So you can use Chaos Center to set up chaos workflows. You have control over how they run, against which environments they run. It's important to correctly scope your experiments, to not run it against the wrong nodes, the wrong clusters, the wrong services. Because if you start running your experiments against the cluster that Chaos Center itself is running on, then that's not going to be very useful. One that I want to highlight still was you can also prioritize which experiments are prioritized and which ones which one are going to be done in which order. So we can manage the workflow. Was that a question? Cool. So we can manage the workflow, And the idea is that the experiments, they will give us a resilience score at the end when the experiments complete. They can learn continuously, so you can monitor what changes in your code base does for your resilience of your product as a whole. There's full support for multi-tenancy and different authentication methods. Support for RBAC, so you can manage who can schedule, who can plan the experiments. Of course, monitoring and observability is a big part of it, because we need to be able to analyze the output of our experiments and use that to make decisions on where additional resilience is going to be needed in the system. And getting experiments, the easiest way for that is to utilize Chaos Hub. So Chaos Hub allows you to either create new experiments. So if something is not already supported, everything is open source, so you can contribute new experiments there. But there's currently already a whole suite. There's a small selection of it. All the big cloud providers are supported. I think there's currently 6 cloud providers. So the big 3, of course, and also Salesforce, Oracle, and IBM. So some of the experiments that are available, so we can cause chaos on the pods, nodes, network, stressing the system. So think of memory or CPU stress, but also terminating cloud services or removing resources from your cloud workloads, and see what kind of effect that has on your resiliency, and if your product is going to be able to remain operational. So with that out of the way, let's talk a bit about the future of Litmus Chaos and where we are going to go with it. So it will stay a CNCF project. But aside from that, we're also going to integrate it more into the Harness platform, so it will become integrated in our SaaS product. We're going to increase the support for non-Kubernetes infrastructure, because chaos engineering, of course, goes beyond just Kubernetes. Get more application-specific experiments, and we'll expand on the SDK and get a bigger selection of chaos types. And I think that's, are we familiar with Bob Ross? Or am I so old that I'm the only one?
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting a couple of yes from the audience. So there are no failed chaos experiments, just happy little accidents. I do notice that I went a little bit fast over my slides. So I would like to leave you with these 2 links. So bit.ly start Litmus, which is the getting started guide for Litmus Chaos. And the second one I wanted to mention is at I think it's KubeCon Detroit, the 25th or the 29th of October. We're hosting Chaos Day, which is a full day chaos workshop. So if you were already planning to go there and you have access to the pre-con, Chaos Day will be an 8-hour 9 to 5 session where my colleagues will go in depth into Litmus Chaos and how to apply it. And with that, I would like to go to questions. Do you need to switch it over?
Yeah. Okay, we have a question. How do you simulate network latency?
So network latency latency latencycy, is this someone in the audience or is this from external? Okay, yes, thank you. What do you mean with how do you simulate it?
I mean, when you need to engineer dropping something, just how do you generate the latency? So to test it, the service that I have a pod and want to simulate to cause network latency for the service.
Yeah.
How do I interact with the cluster in order to generate it, or
how it works on a low level, I cannot tell you, but it is one of the functionality of the agent where it will be able to simulate it, but I don't know the specifics of how it works.
Do you want to take a question from the back?
Yeah. It was more just that there is a Linux utility called TC that allows you to interact with packets on the kernel level, which is how you introduce latency.
Okay.
Want to repeat that just for the
so we from the audience we got that there's a package called TC.
Yep.
And on the kernel level, it's able to control the latency of packets going to the application. Thank you. Does Litmus cover cluster failures? Cluster failures is one of the experiments that you can run. So yes, it does cover it. It doesn't cover it in the sense that if an experiment actually kills your cluster and it brings down your production, then you probably should have scoped the experiment a little bit smaller before taking this step. So not covered in an insurance sense. Do you have any thoughts on continuous verification, and can Litmus chaos be used for it? Litmus chaos can be used for continuous verification. I don't have very specific thoughts on that one. Is it another agent to run? Is it someone in the audience here?
It's me.
Okay.
How many more agents do we need in infrastructure?
So you need a chaos, the chaos agent, and you need one chaos agent. And if you're going to external Kubernetes clusters, then you can utilize remote agents. So yes.
Or node.
No, you can run. That's a good question. I will have to get back to you on that one. Sorry. Do you inject any agents in infrastructure? Yeah, that's a similar question. I'll have to get back to that one. Sorry. What is the right time to introduce chaos engineering? That's a good one. It's like what is the right time to start writing unit tests when you're starting a project? It depends on yeah. I think this is very, very project dependent. I don't think there's one single answer to it. This is a very, very much a consultancy answer, but that's the best I can do there. Question in the back, yes?
Regarding network simulation, are you familiar with network simulator NS2?
So the question is, am I familiar with the network simulator NS2?
Yes.
No, I'm not.
It allows apparently to, with the help of some script language, to set up scenarios, which also allows to simulate latency and whatever parameters. Everything what is in TCP/IP protocols, it has behind it. All what is lacking is physical layer. So it is physically works exactly the same way as all the networks. So would it be possible then to look at the house kind of model implemented in a STU language to drop it to this kind of research environment.
So is the question if you could use that tool within Litmus Chaos, or?
Would you be interested to think about using of this tool for network simulation and creating samples of chaos engineering models in this language?
I personally would find that interesting, yes. So the question is if I would find it interesting to use this tool to generate network models.
It's basically a sandbox scenario. It's like creating a sandbox scenario where you test things before rather than go to production environments and start messing around with tools. Now you say in that tool basically creates a sandbox environment where you can chaos engineer prior to production.
Is that a good summary? So that is, it should be seen as a sandbox environment?
We'll discuss it more in details later on.
Okay, thank you.
Hey. Okay, feels like that is the end of the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that, we are going to wind up for tonight. So once again, if you want to come and speak, please do go to cloudnativelund.com. We are going to go to Tank and Paddle after this. So as you come out of the front door, you just go left, 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 like follow the road around. So hopefully a couple of you will come to the pub and continue to hang out and chat. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. I'm Cheryl. I will see you next month.
Yes, I'm Cheryl.
Yeah. Not nothing like.
I contribute to Litmus Chaos, so that's fine. Yeah, I give the same time. I want to because I kind of gave a very similar look.
I
think the new Elizabeth That's what I'm thinking. Like it's really just flow in like this. Everything is never fall asleep on the train. No. If I had to get on a train, I'd be like risk for all of us. That's the goal really far. The train. I
know. I always like to keep an eye out, but the couple of questions I have is it?
No worries, thanks so much.
What's your capacity? Yeah, of course, I think it's
my name is Chimapo Boy. I'm going to give work for companies. And then 12% of our clients and they're all trying to reduce their private data.
That is the main thing. So if people come and it's worth spending that use.
Is that what you're focusing on?
That's the main thing. Thank you. Thank you. Send me a message. Chat to later.
Yes, but then they're so expensive.
Do you have any plans to move to any specific cloud or?
We're I think about this. The one I'm currently dealing with was one of the most difficult clients I've ever had. It's a local authority.
Someone next to it is with you.
And they basically had consistency. And maintain the presence which they share with some other local authorities in London. And they were simply not interested in moving to public cloud because of data records.
Even because there's no the US has a region. It's only for
Yes. So